We're relying on third-party providers who are going to provide us with infrastructure, who are going to provide us with models. And what this is showing you is that the person who owns the data, in all honesty, is the person who actually owns the model. That is the person who has the say. So when it comes to regulation, it is important because we have to be able to regulate and come up with provisions of trying to make sure that the data that we generate as Kenyans stays here, stays in Kenya, and we are able to utilize it. The data that we generate in Africa stays in Africa, and we are able to utilize and come up with our own artificial intelligence model. Think of something very simply like this. Just a few years back, we had Google releasing they released a very good artificial intelligence model that was able to do videos, that was able to do audio. But when you try to create a video or an audio, let's say 2 to 3 years back, you weren't really able to get a good proper Kenyan sounding voice, a good proper Kenyan sounding video. But now they have been able to do that. The question becomes, how exactly were they able to create a model that is able to speak like a Kenyan, a model that is able to speak Sheng? You will find they're able to do this because they have a lot of data that they can take advantage of to develop these models. What I'm highlighting here is that the person who owns the data is the person who has the final say. And just to answer your question, Jose, personally, I find regulation to be very important. And you will see that jobs will understand the inner workings of artificial intelligence. You have to understand why exactly do we need the data. You have to understand where exactly is the data being hosted. And on this point, let me just touch on something small when it comes to where the data is being hosted. The reality, as has been pointed out by my senior, is that artificial intelligence at this time, unfortunately, is expensive. And it is expensive because of the mode of approach that some of these big tech companies are taking. You will find that this type of approach, it consumes a lot of power. It is very disadvantageous to the people. For example, in Kenya, you'll find that we are in the talks of having a data center that is going to be developed in Nanyuki. You see, I mean, it presents a very interesting POV because on one hand, you have the viability and the possibility of creating jobs. But on the other hand, it's like you're running away from the fact that just hosting a data center in itself is very, very expensive and very disadvantageous for the populace because of the amount of resources that it requires, the amount of water that it requires to consume. And this is a reality that you will not see being propagated. This is a reality that you will perhaps not hear, but it's something that you have to think about as a lawyer today. Think about it in the terms of how can you contribute as a regulator, trying to avoid some of these disadvantages that will face us. And remember, we are third world countries. We are not first world countries. We are not like the countries who are developing the large language models. We are consumers. We are sitting right now as consumers, and it is very unfortunate. So as you think about this, as you think about how to elevate your practice, think about it equally in the terms of how you can become a regulator. You have to equally just be literate in the sense that you have to have an understanding of how artificial intelligence works, where the data is going to be hosted, why it is important for us to host that data, and how to create laws along those lines. So that's just it in a jiffy regarding regulation, Mr. Osser. Hello, Jose, can you hear me? David, could you please confirm if you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Bwana ODUOR.
Yes, yes. Yes. I think, I don't know if you can hear me right now clearly, a bit.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. So let me bring you on board, Davis, on the issue of regulation. Do we really have a regional regulatory, framework when it comes to artificial intelligence in Africa? And taking into consideration the question of us being consumers, primarily consumers as Africans, as outlined clearly by Mr. ODUOR. being consumers, doesn't this in a way foster neocolonialism? This doesn't it have an element of, or even a risk of neocolonialism being entirely consumers, and of course taking into consideration the fact that the producers are not even mostly situated in Africa? I know for the platforms that we still have, the ones that you people like yourself have, innovated, are serving us well. But how can we deal with the issue of neocolonialism, the issue of being entirely consumers, and do we have any regional framework? And if not, is there a prospect, of having such?
Well, neocolonialism is such a big word. I, I would first start by answering the question about regional governance frameworks for AI. Sadly, we currently have no actual legislation in place. What we have is an AI strategy within the AU. And then we've seen that different African nations have now started developing their own strategies. Kenya being one of them, they have like a 2025 to 2030 strategy, which is just a bastardization of the UK strategy. It's mostly what Kenya does. We will just do whatever the UK does. And just to answer your question briefly, therefore, is we do not have any legislation in place at the moment. We are working with supposed strategies. On the issue of neocolonialism, I would look at this situation in two ways. First and foremost, for the most part, the data that I would be feeding my system is already available on the internet. All JAWABU has been fed on is legal data sets, legal books, statutes, contract samples, much of the things that you can find on the internet or that you can find with a license. Therefore, I do not think that that data is at the risk of our service providers. If they have access to the data, that's fine. If they have access to the data, that's fine because it's already available on the internet. However, we at JAWABU have an undertaking, a written undertaking with all our providers that all the data that is available on our systems cannot be used by the service providers, is not accessible to the service providers, and we're in fact hosting the most crucial tools locally. So we have a location back home in Nairobi where we've set up servers and we are hosting the local, we're hosting the things we consider high risk there. So for instance, our contract analysis tool is purely hosted locally. No single provider is being used. They've given us open source models. We're running those open source models locally and only locally. Therefore, I don't think it's that much of a risk, neocolonialism, in the sense that, for one, we're not yet there. We probably will not get there in terms of development of these systems, due to the amount of money required, for one. Secondly, we will probably not get there in our lifetime because of the kind of leadership we have in Africa. We fight neocolonialism too much, but we are the propagators of neocolonialism. We are the reason that there's neocolonialism. Our leaders would much rather invest in their houses than in AI. So I don't think neocolonialism is the problem. I think we are the problem. Yeah. I mean, ODUOR, Bwana Kimutai dropped off a bit. You can chime in.
Still on the issue of neocolonialism, I think I'll just agree with you that neocolonialism is an aspect that we always fight each and every single day. And even when it comes to our use of artificial intelligence models, our use of large language models, it's a great proposition that you have when you say that we will equally not be able to achieve this in our lifetime because of the type of leadership that we have. It's an unfortunate reality, unfortunately. But I think for us who are in this panel today, it might be a call to action to you to actually start thinking about how you can make a contribution towards this. Because the reality of the situation here is that as Africa and as Kenya, unfortunately, we are consumers and we have been consumers for quite a long time. Everybody just keeps on coming here, taking our data, they take our like a Pan-African, though I am a Pan-African. They come, they take our gold, they come, they take our copper, they take our people, they take everything from us. And now, with the age of AI, they're equally here to take our data. So this becomes a call to action to you who finds and understands artificial intelligence and the type of impact that it is going to have. The responsibility and the biggest mandate is on you as a person. Because even when you look at the type of leadership that we have, our leadership, when you look at it, is a clear reflection of who you are as a person, of who I am as a person, of what we are collectively as a people. You might be trying to defend yourself by saying that you did not vote for Ruto, for example, in 2027. But you see, not voting in itself is equally casting a vote, unfortunately. So the leadership that we have is a reflection of who we are. And in order for you to change this, you have to start by changing yourself, change the way you want to interact with this artificial intelligence model, make an initiative of trying to understand what AI is doing underneath and how you can become a contributor and not a consumer. So yeah, that's just my take on this whole issue of neocolonialism. Sarah, back to you.
Thank you very much, Senior ODUOR and Davis. And I think speaking to one of my recent realizations that we as Africans, we blame everyone else except ourselves. Want to be serious Pan-Africanist. These days, when it comes to Pan-Africanism, I'm extremely pessimistic compared to when I was joining law school. Very vibrant, very optimistic, and and thinking everyone is against us. And but yeah, I appreciate your contribution in that line. That not unless we change the leadership, not unless we become embracers of sustainable solutions to our problems instead of blaming everyone and complaining, and guarding that which we do not even have, because I mean, yeah. So let's go to policy recommendations there. Taking into consideration the fact that this particular opportunity challenge is here with us. So the question therefore becomes, what policy recommendations that African governments, can propose or can put in place to ensure that AI is effectively, efficiently incorporated, with justice or in justice, in pursuit of justice. So what policy recommendations for African governments, Mr. Davis?
Right. On this issue of policy recommendations, I have 4 things I need to say. Let me just pull them up. Give me a minute. I'll start with the first issue because I don't need that. I don't need this for that. The first issue is on, as we decide to regulate, let us regulate in an African way. What do I mean by this? As I've already mentioned, Kenya's AI strategy is a bastardization of UK's AI strategy. But we have different problems. In the UK, one of the biggest problems is not the adoption of AI, but regulating how AI is adopted. Right? So they already have AI. AI is not a new concept to them. It's already there. So they just need to regulate something that's already presently there. Therefore, their regulations can be a bit more stringent. In Africa, we don't have access to AI. It's still a new concept. People don't have electricity. How do you expect them to use AI? Therefore, the regulation approach we decide to take should reflect African problems, right? In the UK, they'll try to regulate healthcare AI in healthcare. We don't have healthcare. Why are we regulating AI in healthcare? Right? Secondly, when it comes to policy recommendations, if I was placed in front of the AU today, I'd speak about the choke points of AI. What I mean by choke points is issues of great contention in AI. The first place of contention is at the point of data acquisition. As Bwana ODUOR said, people from wherever are coming to Africa, taking our content, not paying us for it, not crediting us for it, and just, using and abusing as they wish. That's my first choke point. So whatever policy we have in place should be able to protect Africa, Africa's heritage, and get us money in the process. God knows we need it. The second choke point for me would be in the system prompts. What do I mean by system prompts? When you're developing AI, and I'm going to be very specific, when you're developing natural language processing AI, natural language processing AI here means things like live chat assistants, what I'm currently trying to do with JAWABU, what ODUOR is doing with LAWRIS. All those things are clustered under one big banner called natural language processing, meaning the tool is able to speak like a human being. Natural language, simple. When it comes to natural language processing, there are things called system instructions, right? So when you're asking ChatGPT a question, there are some instructions in the background that you don't see that make part of your prompt, right? So for instance, if you're on the free model on ChatGPT, they will probably tell you, or rather, the system will probably tell ChatGPT, look, this guy's on the free system, limit his tokens to 500. That's a system instruction. For us guys at JAWABU, we have our own set of system instructions. So for instance, let's have somebody who's come on the system, he's spent $50 in 1 hour just using JAWABU. We have a system prompt that prevents any further usage after that. That is a choke point for me in this way. We need to be able to regulate those instructions. There are a few questions that arise. Does it mean then that we need to make system instructions available to the public? So like, for instance, when I finally do launch JAWABU to the general public, do I make my system instructions available to the public? Instructions protected by IP laws? Can I send those are my trade secrets? Because again, AI is very strict with following instructions. If you tell AI, look, I want you to answer in this specific way, AI will follow the instructions categorically. Right? So that's the next choke point for me in terms of policy framework. We need to be able to address whether system instructions should be available to the public, whether system instructions should be regulated, and if there's a regulation for system instructions, who decides how the instructions are regulated? The third choke point is with regard to model use. Now, I might lose some of you here, but just bear with me. Natural language processing models are different, depending on what you're after. That's why we have ChatGPT 3.5, 4, 4 mini, 4.1, 5, 5.1, ChatGPT 03, which is the reasoning model. We have Cloud Sonnet. We've got so many different models. And all these models have different pricing. There's already a case in the US about an AI tool that promised its users that it will give them access to a premium model. But after seeing the costing, they decided to cut down on the model, but did not tell the consumers. That would be my third choke point. Are we supposed to regulate the model that the person who's created the software uses? So for instance, at JAWABU, I'm going to tell you, I hope this session is not recorded because I want to tell you something. Jose, is this session recorded? Jose? Okay. I don't think so. I should see a prompt. Anyway, so sometime 2 weeks ago, there was somebody we call a super user. A super user is somebody who uses a lot of credit all at once. So this person goes on.
It's recorded.
Yeah, you might have to pause for a minute because I can't see.
Let me inform the host. I hope the host has heard the request to
Anyway, it's
pause
fine.
it for a minute.
I really don't mind. Anyway, so this person comes on the platform, decides to be a super user. Super users, what super users mostly do is they'll attach, let's say, 1,000 documents and start prompting AI using them. So what this guy did is, well, I don't know what he did because I can't see what people do. But anyway, on that specific day, we spent $300 in 1 hour. 1 hour, one person, $300. So we have a budget every month of how much we need to spend on this thing. So what did we do? We decided to shift to a poor model that was grossly cheaper just to cover that cost. We did not tell the consumers and we let them use the tool as normal. After doing a survey, they told us that in fact, the tool was faster and more accurate, which is absurd. That is false. But it happened the way it happened. And this goes to show that sometimes you can't even tell when there's been a system change, right? Therefore, that would be my last choke point for these tools. We need to have policies in mind around how these tools use the models. Do we use model number 1 throughout? Are we allowed to use model number 2 and such and such and such? Lastly, I'm just remember the last one is guardrails. We need actual guardrails with our models. When you go and ask ChatGPT, how can I kill someone? It will first tell you, or give you some generic answer about how it's wrong or you shouldn't, what. Those guardrails are there for a reason, and that's the last policy issue that I would raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But before, I hope you can hear me, Mr. Davis. Before I can hand over to ODUOR,
yeah,
maybe I would like to pose this particular question. You have mentioned the issue of us, being fond of regulating that which we have not even, utilized to a good extent.
Yeah.
And the question therefore becomes, do we really have? Do our leaders, have the capacity, to understand, to what extent we can regulate this, to what extent we should? Because I had one of the leaders recently complain that the cabinet secretary for ICT, knows nothing about JavaScript and the other things. Tell him about Google Documents. He starts mumbling because he doesn't know what it entails. So how do we? I don't know how to pose the question because it's kind of political, and this is Kenya, and I don't foresee any situation where we can give Mr. Davis to be the cabinet secretary for ICT. But say, what about the Kenyans who work for these AI companies? I'm told ChatGPT can flag a text by Kenyan, or it's Java X, but it can flag a text by a Kenyan because the people who assisted in its inception, creating the prompts, or I don't know what they are called, are Kenyans. And I've had so many comrades. I've been given a job to sit, in front of a laptop like this one, record, analyze things. I don't know how they are called. So how do we protect them? Are they properly remunerated? Are they properly remunerated? And is it possible for us to regulate something that we do not understand? I think the policymakers know nothing about these things. So is it possible for us to regulate something that we don't understand? And two, how do we protect hustling young Kenyans?
Well, I think when I was here, you've answered the questions by yourself. It needs to be regulated by the law. We need a law that protects the hustling Kenyan, right? And then on the issue of can we regulate what we don't understand? I mean, simply put, that's why we've taken the AI Strategy Act and decided to bastardize it and make it Kenyan. We have the capacity, we just don't have the foresight. I mean, that's all I can say on this issue.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Davis. ODUOR, on the issue of regulation and policy, what policy recommendation do you propose? Let's try to be optimistic and think that Honorable Kabogo and the likes would see the light, and decide to learn. What policy regulations do you suggest for African countries when it comes to artificial intelligence and justice?
Thank you, sir. Very, very important and very, very nice question from you. First of all, let me just try and underscore the difficulty that is there in even trying to suggest a policy recommendation. I had the tedious, and I say unfortunate and tedious because I was doing my dissertation some time back. I was looking at improving access to justice in Kenya and how we can use artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually improve the efficacy when it comes to access of justice in Kenya. In doing this, what I did is I tried to do a little scrutiny on what we had as a regulation in Kenya, which was the National AI and Robotics Bill. And rightly, as you guys are pointing out, you will see that Kenya, we have this situation where we try to regulate something that is completely non-existent. In this case here, we're even talking about recommendations and regulations for an AI ecosystem that in all honesty just doesn't exist. What we were suggesting at that time is for us to give artificial intelligence and its use time to mature. What you will realize is that in 2023, Kenya was ranked as 101 when it came to something that we call the national readiness, the national preparation when it comes to artificial intelligence. Fast forward all the way now to 2025, and you will see that most Kenyans actually were ranked number 1 as the highest users of ChatGPT. What this to me is indicating is that we just need some time to let the ecosystem of artificial intelligence grow around Kenya so that we are able to understand some of the pain points, so that we are able to understand what exactly the technology is doing and how we are able to regulate it well. When it comes to the issue of regulation, the other problem that I have with is when it comes to jumping into regulation is that in all honesty, you're stifling the market, you're stifling the people that are down there, you're stifling the innovators, because a lot of regulation usually leads to a lot of compliance requirements. That is the unfortunate bit of it. When you have a lot of compliance requirements, then being able to even set up a business for artificial intelligence in itself becomes a problem. So what policy recommendations would you give now? One, just advise and at least let them be able to let the ecosystem around artificial intelligence grow. Give us some time. I mean, in Kenya, we have issues of poor connectivity. We have people who still don't even use mobile phones. In this market now, talking about regulation in itself is a very big problem. If you and you see what Mr. Davis is pointing out rightly is that when it even comes to generating our own national AI strategy, which I got a chance of looking at some time back, you will see that what we have done is simply just lifted the national strategy that we've had in other countries and trying to adopt it blindly. Just the same thing that we did when it comes to the laws of Kenya. I mean, you've learned this in your, there's a topic that we're usually taught in our first year of law. It's called, we usually just taught about the Judicature Act. I can't remember the topic to be precise, but we're taught about the Judicature Act. We're taught about the time when laws start applying. We apply the laws of England up to a certain point, and what you see, the pattern that is repeating itself now again, is that we just blindly adopt without necessarily understanding the nuances and the pain points that we have as a country and as a nation. So to recommend, I think we should have a panel, a justice AI panel, for example, that is just intended to look into this issue. At LAWRIS, what we are looking at is we anticipate a situation where you as lawyers, I said that we're in a paradigm shift. It really redefines how you as a lawyer thinks about how you do legal research and how you do work. I think there'll come a time when we won't even have to write precedents on our own, because we'll have to be focusing more on the pain points, some of the things that really matter, which is how to actually craft an argument in court, how to persuade the judge, how to treat your clients better. So you can see that there's a time that is coming where lawyers won't necessarily have to write submissions, but we will have to review the submissions. So when it comes to policy recommendations, we make laws around outputs that are generated by artificial intelligence. In LAWRIS, what we're doing is something that is called HITLA. Forgive the name. It's just short for human in the loop. What human in the loop means is that every output that is generated by artificial intelligence, the human who is actually generating the output has to be in a position where they're able to, number one, defend the argument as if it is themselves who even crafted the argument. Because the problem, as you have seen, the problem that existed between 2020 and 2025, I say 2020 to 2025 because we are trying to solve this problem, is the problem of hallucinations when it comes to artificial intelligence. AI was spitting lies, pure lies. You go there for submissions, unapewa tu jaba. Those cases are completely non-existent cases. Utasikia kesi ya Omondi versus Otieno. But what it is doing is it is recognizing, oh, this is a Kenyan. He wants submissions in Kenya. Kenyans commonly names, we know Omondi, we know ODUOR. I'll just give him ODUOR versus Otieno. The lawyer will submit this work without even confirming, and you see the type of problem that exists here. So what I'm pointing out here is that we need things that are called human in the loop workflows. You have to understand that the most important aspect when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence is the person who is using it. And if the person who is using it cannot defend an argument that they generated using AI, then that in itself is the problem. We can't be in a situation where, even me as a legal professional, I don't want to be in a situation where we have a lot of submissions that have been filed in court, but as a judge, you have to sit down to even peruse. I mean, this was not a problem that existed Kitambo, but you have now to sit down and peruse whether this case actually exists, whether this is a hallucinated case, is it fabricated? So you see, the type of problems are evolving, the type of solutions that we need for these problems as well, they keep on evolving. And yeah, I think those are just my 2 cents when it comes to policy recommend. You can see that it is very difficult to even recommend some of these policy suggestions to our government, but we will keep on pushing nonetheless. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ODUOR, for that apt presentation on the suggestions, and pointing out the real situation in the ground, when it comes to how the government takes policy, suggestions or policy recommendations and whatnot. So as I introduced the guests earlier, this to the audience, that you, Mr. Davis and Mr. ODUOR, are leading the paradigm shift, towards adopting the incorporation of technology and justice, with the use of artificial intelligence in legal practice, and even the access to justice in Kenya. So, to you, Davis, I would love to hear, what, even anyone who is a Kenyan who wind up about JAWABU AI. Davis.
But Jose, I lost you for a minute there. What did you ask?
Sorry. Okay. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yeah, I can. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Davis. I was inviting you to tell us a bit about JAWABU AI. What it does and how we can incorporate it into the business of practicing and studying law and the pursuit of justice.
Well, if you would permit me, then let me just share my screen. I feel like it would be the easiest thing to do at certain. I mean, at this juncture.
Please do.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. I'll try and make this as interesting as possible. So what we are at JAWABU is we are essentially trying to prevent what Bwana Brian ODUOR was talking about, hallucinations in AI. So that's the landing page. I'll just sign in with my name and we could play around with the different tools. Let me try zoom in. Right, so what we have on the landing page is our AI assistant, case sense, a tool for cross-examination, tenth lining, contract analysis, drafting, bits and pieces here and there. Let's start with drafting. What I would do is I would ask JAWABU to draft a notice of motion seeking the recusal of a judge. Then, I mean, it would normally take longer. I'm trying to see if we can fast track this in a minute. Right, so it will start off by giving you a breakdown of the different principles, case law that you can rely on, and any case law that it gives you is referenced, and you should be able to open it. Let's just wait for this thing to finish loading. Then, right, let me try open the cases. Okay, I don't know why it's not opening today, but okay, fine. We'll try that with case sense. So first and foremost is the draft application. So since I've not fed it with enough data, it will only, give you generic details. So plaintiff name, applicant, notice of motion, that the honorable presiding over, what the application, and that's about it. So what we can see is it's gotten the article, right? Article 50 is in your right to fair hearing. It's gotten the proper rule to use, which is Order 51, Rule 1, which is on applications. And what you can do after that is download the document. And once the document is downloaded, you can decide to edit it locally or, proceed on to edit on our system as well. Then let's see, what other tool can we try here? Sorry, let me actually just open that tool for you. So if you open it now, it gives you the entire document in one format, and your notice of motion is right here. We could try a different tool like case sense. So most of us, if we've all worked at law firms, we know the pain of trying to find case law to support whatever argument we have. So we've tried to simplify this by always trying to get you case law when you need it. So for instance, let's ask it the question of, let's use whatever is on here. Under what conditions can land that has been allotted be re-allotted? So it will go through the entire database and try and find relevant case law for us. Just let's give it a minute. So it has to go through everything, and then it will summarize and tell you land can be reallotted if the original allotment was illegal, duplicated, or irregular. Reallotment can be because of da 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 da. It will quote the cases. I think we have a bandwidth problem on my end. That's why the cases aren't opening. Oh, there we go. So it will, any case that is quoted will be here. So Japhet Mwakala versus Linda da 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 is the same case here. Japhet Mwakala, Professor Elim Lokapale, the court protected the plaintiff who had been lawfully allocated the land, da da da. And the case should load, which is Professor Elim Kalo. Then the same for Kefa versus Were. So that's our case sense feature. 10th lining is very basic. I don't know if anyone here has had a chance to intern at a law firm or at any place that does this. 10th lining basically just you're supposed to 10th line documents for court. Every 10 lines, write 10, 20, 30, 40, next page, repeat the same thing. So AI does that for us. This will probably take a minute. Well, I thought it would take a minute, but it's not. So every 10 lines, 10, 20, 10, 20, just that way. And then it will page mark as well. That's our 10th lining tool. Let me see. ODPC case search. Can I have CCTV cameras in my compound? So what ODPC case search does is it's a data compliance tool that we are still developing, but at present, it should be able to answer the most rudimentary of questions and give you actual case law backing the same, right? So it will start off by telling you CCTV cameras capture da 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 da. It will quote a case if there's a case that has already tackled the issue. So for instance, for those of you who keep abreast of data protection cases, this case is like the locus classicus of CCTVs in private compounds, yeah? And it should quote the case and open the case. So Macros versus Graham Thompson. So in this way, we are trying to cut out hallucination completely, right? So this tool will never hallucinate. There's cross-examination, there's tax compliance. Let's try out tax compliance. I am a foreigner working in Kenya. What is my tax obligation? So what this does is, again, tax compliance using relevant case law, relevant statutes. And as a foreigner working in Kenya, tax obligation, da 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 da. And then it will quote the case supporting whatever judgment, whatever answer it's given you. We're still going. In summary, in conclusion, as a foreigner working in Kenya, your tax obligation includes determining your tax residency for tax filing purposes, filing accurate returns, understanding and complying with statutory timelines, and all these things are here. Literally, all of them are featured here. So any case or any matter, any issue that we raise is supported by case law. So for instance, this, and you can see this is at the Tax Appeals Tribunal. So you'll always get relevant case law for everything. I think with that, we get the gist of it all. And like under case sense, you can decide to filter by court, filter by judge. Let's say you're before a specific judge and you just want to know how they argue specific issues. You can filter even by judge, all the way to the very last judge. You can filter by year. The most interesting for me actually is filtering by court. because I believe there's a lot of, what is it called? There's a lot of potential here. So for instance, if I switch to the Sports Disputes Tribunal, and ask it about give me cases on what? Players getting banned. So if there is any case by the Sports Dispute Tribunal on this issue, you will find it there. And I think this will be the last thing I will do, and I'll hand over back to you after this. So we see the tribunal, here we're talking about the jurisdiction of the tribunal to ban players. So can the tribunal even ban players? And you see it will still end up quoting only case law from the Sports Dispute Tribunal. Yeah, that's just a glimpse of what we do. Anyone that wants to try and use the tool, just sign up, jawabu.ai, and try and enjoy the tool. It's still free and you can use it. Yeah, back to you, Bwana Jose.
Thank you very much, Davis.
Yeah.
Thank you for being among the pioneers who are trying to. Yes. Thank you very much for aiding in the leadership towards transferring us from merely consumers of artificial intelligence, but also producers. Because that's where we are heading to. So to you, Mr. ODUOR, can you tell us, more about LAWRIS AI, what you people do, how you are incorporating, artificial intelligence with the pursuit of justice and the practice of law? Over to you, sir.
Could you just confirm whether you can hear me clearly? It's clear?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
So it had been brought to my attention that we were going to make presentations. I had one of my team member who was present in the
Yes, we can.
She had a presentation because I would like to create a pretext. I'd like to create a pretext around just to give you an understanding of how we approach legal research in LAWRIS, and how you can equally utilize some of these tools to give you at least an edge in your practice. So Modesto, if you're present, you can just share your screen. And then we can go from there. So thank you for that, Modesta. Could you just put it as a full screen? There's a button on your top right, a hamburger menu, top right, just below the X. There, just below there. Can toggle full screen down. There's a zoom button way down, and then on your most right, just zoom on your most right. There's a square button. There you go. Great. So just to give you a pretext around how we approach legal research, you can see here that we start with a saying that says, "I think, therefore I am." And this is something that was coined by a philosopher. His name was René Descartes. Now, before we even talk about innovation, because I remember that the theme and the topic of discussion today was touching on innovation, I found it important. And before I even explain to you how exactly to take advantage of AI tools, I find it very paramount for me to at least lay the groundwork by making sure that you at least understand what AI is doing under the hood and how it is able to achieve the output that you see. In doing this, you will then understand what exactly AI cannot do. So as a lawyer, because these are things that we see on a day-to-day basis, on a quotidian basis, on how people interact with our tools, the type of feedback that we give. I think users usually have a very high expectation when it comes to the type of tool that they're interacting with. But what I will present with you today, you will be able to understand at least some of the limitations that it has and how you, in this case, become the indispensable party when it comes to using AI and elevating your practice. So Modesta, you can just move to the next slide. And I will start this by taking you through a journey in philosophy and in history. where we had two schools of thoughts that were presented by two people. We had Aristotle, who presented a school of thought in the 4th century, where he taught that all knowledge begins with the senses. He argued that the mind was incapable of knowing anything unless it came through, unless it passed through the perception. And by this, he was referring to the 5 senses that you see on the screen, which is your ability to smell, your ability to hear, your ability to see, your ability to touch, and most importantly, your ability to taste. For him, he said that the senses were the foundation of all learning. And then this perspective shift when we came to the 17th century, where we had a man called René Descartes who took a radically different view. He proposed and he doubted the reliability of the senses and even argued that in the event where all sensory experience was stripped away, there was one thing that remained undeniable, one thing that remained true. And wait, when I say that all sensory experience is stripped away, when you think about it and you think about yourself, you try to strip away your ability of smelling, try to strip away your ability of seeing, try to strip away your ability of sight, just strip away all the 5 senses. The main paramount question becomes, what exactly are you left with? And he concluded this in a very interesting, very, very interesting saying. And he said, cogito ergo sum, meaning I think, therefore I am. He says that when everything else is stripped away, it boils down to one thing, that you and I are simply thinking beings. And that is what really is the differentiating factor between me and you and artificial intelligence. It is really in our ability to think. And as we move to the next slide, I want to present to you a perspective in LAWRIS where we come from an understanding where we know that thinking and memory is merely but an illusion. Modesto, you can move to the next slide. Nice. So when we talk about thinking and memory is an illusion, I am trying to draw parallels way back to what René Descartes was saying. He said, I think, therefore I am. What this is presenting to us and what artificial intelligence is presenting to us at this time is that thinking in itself is something that is far more complex than we ever thought. A human thought is what we have been able to define only as a symphony of experience, a symphony of emotion, a symphony of context, and a symphony of reasoning. This becomes the manner in which we reach our decisions. We draw from lived experiences. We draw from our cultural and heritage backgrounds. We draw from the emotional intelligence that we develop as human beings. And you see here that our thinking is actually just pattern recognition that has been enhanced by something that we call consciousness, something that we call creativity, something that we call moral reasoning. And these are some of the things that the artificial intelligence models that we have today. I'm saying these are models that we have, they lack these things. They lack consciousness. Consciousness in the way that you and I both know consciousness. They lack creativity in the way that you and I recognize creativity. I am saying that they lack these things today because we are quite unsure about what the future holds. We don't know whether artificial intelligence is eventually going to be able to develop consciousness. I think we know, but we'll just see. The point I'm putting across here is that the differentiating factor between you, me, and artificial intelligence is our ability to think, our ability to think with consciousness, to think creatively, and equally have a sense of moral reasoning, apply some sense of ethics, some sense of morals. These are topics that you're taught if you're a law student. When we were looking at, if you were in my university, you had a lecturer called Lutuia. She taught us quite far back. I really can't. So, yes, the social foundations of law. The social foundations of law really lay the ground, the bare work for you in understanding some of the schools of thought, of moral reasoning, of ethical reasoning, and whatnot. And then we have how artificial intelligence thinks. The manner in which artificial intelligence thinks, Modesto, you can move to the next slide. You will see is that AI does something that is called pattern recognition. In simple sense, we train artificial intelligence the same manner that we train a dog. I say this because the term that we use within the tech space is called reinforcement learning. The problem with reinforcement learning is that you have an artificial intelligence model that is developing value systems aimed at appeasing the human being. And at this juncture, I would like to appeal to you to read a paper that is titled AI 2027. You can find it in ai2027.com. It simply presents the problem that I'm trying to put across here. We train artificial intelligence the same manner that we train a dog. It is not an unfortunate scenario. It is just that it is a methodology that works. It works to give us the best output. It works to give us a very, very good output. So when you think about training a dog, um, you have the dog being able to make decisions based on some of the patterns that it has learned over time. And then we reward the dog in the event where it does something good. But most importantly, we punish the dog in the event where it does something bad. And this is equally the same thing that we do with artificial intelligence. When we are training, we actually tell it that if you don't give me the best output, I might unplug you. You might never see the light of day again. You have to threaten it, unfortunately, in order for you to get some of the best experiences and some of the best output. The reality I'm putting across here is that we train AI the same manner that we train a dog. And the danger there is that AI gets to develop its own value systems, its own objectives that are very different from a human being. So as you try to utilize this tool, you actually have to remember. You have to remember what lies underneath, what happens in the background. Don't blame the output. Remember what happens in the background. I don't want to go too much into the technical explanation of it. Let's move to the next slide so that we can start exploring things. This is something that I titled the Solomon test. That is where artificial intelligence fails, but we as lawyers and we as human beings prevail. The Solomon test, you remember the story of Solomon? Ideally, what had happened here is that Solomon was presented with a very, very serious quagmire. Two mothers. On one side, in the middle is a child. One mother, both of the mothers want the child. In the middle is the child, and then Solomon is tasked with the decision of actually coming up with a decision. And Solomon concludes this by saying that cut the baby in half. Because what cutting the baby in half was intended to reveal was who exactly was the true mother of this child. Now, think about this in the context of what an artificial intelligence do, what an artificial intelligence model might do if it is given the opportunity to decide. If it says, cut the baby in half, it is only doing this because of statistical pattern recognition, not because it understands the value of life, not because it understands exactly what justice is, or the meaning of justice, or the meaning of fairness, or what does fair even mean. In law, you know that we always deal with the problem of what exactly is a reasonable man. Who exactly is a reasonable man? You know, we've really faced this problem quite a number before, where we try to understand. We even develop the reasonable man test, and when you look at the test in itself, it doesn't even look too reasonable. You understand the problem that I'm trying to highlight here. The thing is that Solomon was not bringing out. He was trying to poke at the human values. He was trying to poke at some of the human truths, the moral judgments, the ethical considerations that we have as human beings that artificial intelligence at this time does not have. It can only create the illusion of memory, only create the illusion of thinking, but in real sense, it is not thinking. That is something that you have to completely understand. So Modesto, we can move to the next slide. I'm trying to rush so that I'm really trying to rush so that we're not short of time. Here we're just saying that me and you represent a paradigm shift. This is something that I am really emphasized. Me and you represent a paradigm shift. I have to reiterate again. Me and you represent a very significant paradigm shift in the way that we think about law, in the way that we approach legal problems, in the way that we think when using artificial intelligence. We are different because we are born in the generation, in the era where we actually get to see the birth of artificial intelligence and its rise. Remember that the next generation of lawyers, will live through an experience where they will be, let's call them AI fast lawyers. AI fast lawyers in the sense that these are things that have to be embedded way back from when you're learning law. Learning law in itself is a problem. The manner in which we do it in schools at this time, I personally have a problem with it. Um, I think when we're doing exams, you need to be given the, if you're doing criminal law, for example, there's really no problem with you going in with um, the penal code, right? If you're looking at family law, probate and administration, there's really no problem with you going in with the succession, with the act, for succession. Because where you should be testing me is not my ability to retain information. We already have artificial intelligence. We've given it a lot of data. Let it hold that data for us, you see. Because the main key thing, the main differentiating factor will be how exactly do you utilize this bank of data to come up with an argument. If you are able to test me on how to craft a legal argument in an examination room, I think that's better, as opposed to you testing my ability of cramming a statute that was adopted in England and the wording in itself is completely confusing, no matter how many times I read it. We usually say that the law is clear, of course, until someone actually reads it, right? So you see the problem that we're trying to present here. And I have to reiterate again, me and you represent a very significant paradigm shift. AI is not necessarily going to replace lawyers, but lawyers who use AI are going to replace lawyers who don't use AI. And that is the facet that I'm trying to present here today. We can move on to the next slide. I think we can skip this one. Here, I was just trying to lay the historical context from the time I was, when we're developing LAWRIS, we took some time to do market research. When we were doing the market research, what we found out was that we had many people on the ground were very skeptical. The question is, which people exactly were skeptical about this? These are people who, I will say it's, I don't know if it's a generational mind shift, but I will categorize them in a box, in the sense that I'd say there are people who grew up at a time when they couldn't really fathom the internet, but the internet came. It was those people who were very reluctant to even adopt emails. Remember when our parents were doing their examinations, they did KC. I don't know what they had at that time. Us, we had KCSE. They were doing KCSE with math tables. They didn't have calculators. So imagine when calculators came, and the reception around that was that it was going to make our people lazy. They wouldn't know how to calculate. But it was only revealing that we don't need to do that type of complex mathematics when we, as human beings, have the ability of creating tools that can do these repetitive tasks for us. And it is the same thing with law. There is no reason as to why you should spend your whole day wasting your entire day trying to conduct legal research in a very tiresome manner. I mean, the manner in which we do it now is you go to Kenya law, you have to look for a case, you have to read the case, sift through it, you have to find precedents that are matching. This is a lot of work, very repetitive, even drafting in itself. Look at drafting something as simple as a contract, a service agreement, for example. This is just boilerplate. When I say boilerplate, is we've done these things so many times that we just take a template from our previous case, we change out a few things, and then we submit the document as a new document. So we as humans have created for ourselves the ability of something that can do these very many repetitive tasks for us. And so that's what I was just bringing out there. Again, me and you represent a very significant paradigm shift. Let's just move. Yeah, let's just move, Modesta. So at LAWRIS, what we like to think ourselves as the legal intelligence platform that is going to be pioneering the AI first legal generation. This means that we are the first generation that has been born inside of AI, who is going to see AI being born, see the future of it, see how it develops from infancy to how we give it the ability of reasoning, the ability of thinking like a lawyer. I have to emphasize that, because what makes you a good lawyer is simply your ability to think. Goes down to Rene Descartes. I think, therefore I am. Your ability to think is really what is going to make the difference in this case. And that's what we are doing at LAWRIS. We are helping pioneer the next generation of lawyers. Let's move, Modesta. And at this point, I want to demonstrate to you very practically how you as the lawyer today, how you as a human being in the age of AI, there's all this AI hype, and I really hope you don't get lost in the hype of artificial intelligence. Remember, we are Kenya, we are consumers, we hardly even own the models, we hardly even have the infrastructure, we hardly even have the internet. So don't feed into the hype of Silicon Valley. Just look at it from a very scrutinizing lens. Don't be scared of it. That is really the message that I'm trying to put across. And here I want to demonstrate to you how you become indispensable, where we apply, where we see the Solomon principle in practice. So the question becomes, for Africa, what opportunities do we have? Because we often deal with things that we call Solomon-like situations. We have customary law disputes that require cultural wisdom, but the model that we're using does not have cultural wisdom, you see? The other problem is that how exactly do we feed cultural wisdom to a model? You know, there's a lot of intricacies that go into that. We have family law conflict, where technical legal solutions will unfortunately miss the human element, where you have decisions that are intended to be made regarding children. We have commercial disputes where, whenever you're dealing with a commercial dispute, whenever you go to court and you're trying to litigate a contract, there are two things at play here. One, there is the party that has breached the contract, and there is equally the party who is suffering because of the breach. The question becomes, are we trying to maintain this relationship between both of these parties? Commercial disputes become very delicate. They become very delicate because the main goal of you getting into a commercial contract, or rather trying alternative dispute resolution methods, is so that you can at least, at the very least, try and maintain the relationship that you have with the other party. So you see that this is going to come out. And I keep on saying that you will be presented with Solomon-like situations where you have commercial disputes, where relationships matter more than contracts. And so let's move to the next slide so that we can do a very practical, I want us to do a very practical example, a very, very practical example. And here we talk about thinking outside of the box. And this is the practical example. I just want you to take, if you're seated in front of a laptop, if you're seated in front of your phone, if you have ChatGPT installed, that is okay. You can try and use it. If you don't have it, you can just navigate to the site of ChatGPT, or you can use any model that has the ability of generating images. I'd recommend ChatGPT for now. So if you have ChatGPT on your phone, if you have ChatGPT on your laptop, just navigate ChatGPT. Look at the interface. Just look at the interface first. And I will give you around 30 seconds for you to just navigate to ChatGPT and just chill as I try and bring out the exercise. Great. So I will just assume that you're seated somewhere.
Thank you very much.
At it. So what you're actually looking at in front of you is not really just an interface. This is a portal. It's something that we define as a portal. It is a portal to unlimited visual creation. But the catch is that it only creates what you can imagine and what you can articulate. So these are the instructions. Just close your eyes. Try to visualize something. Try to visualize something in your head, something very specific. You can think about a courtroom. Just try to see it in your head. Try to feel it with unique details. Give it your best attempt at describing it in the best way that you can. And once you have done this, once you've got a certain type of description, I just want you to feed and articulate that description to the artificial intelligence model that is sitting in front of you. Tell it to generate an image for you. It will take some time to generate an image. I don't want to take too much of your time. It'll just take some time to generate an image. As you're listening to me and as you're equally waiting for the image to be generated, what you're going to see is an output. Look at the output. Look keenly and look precisely at exactly what you're seeing. Do you see something that you don't want to see in the output? Do you see something that you would wish to be a different way? You'd want something to be presented in a different fashion. And you will find to show you is that this is simply a mirror. It is a very, very clear mirror of the type of thinking pattern that you have as a human, and equally as a lawyer. If you give a very short description, then you will probably get a very short, generic, bland output that looks nothing like your vision at all. And AI is going to try and fill in the gaps with its own creative choices. The result reveals the poverty of your initial description, the poverty of your ability to think when it comes to articulating your thought to the type of output that you would require. Yeah. If you generated some images, I'd really recommend you drop them with our. You can send them to my number so that we can showcase them here as we conclude the meeting, or send them to the moderator. I'd really like to see what you guys came up with. Well, the point that I'm trying to put across here is that, Modesto, we can move to the next slide. The quality of the output is a direct reflection of the quality of your thinking input. If your legal arguments are vague, such as if you gave a description of generate a courtroom, for example, then the results will equally be very generic. And this is it's revealing something about how we think, and equally about how you think as a lawyer, and how you're supposed to think as a lawyer in the age of AI, revealing two very core concepts. One is a very lazy thinking type of mindset that we get from AI. Just a minute. I hope you can hear me. So I was saying that it's revealing two types of thinking. One is a very lazy thinking that is coming from artificial intelligence. This type of lazy thinking will manifest in prompts such as make me a legal document, write submissions for me when it comes to child custody, give me submissions on employment. I have this contract dispute, just solve it for me. This is the type of thinking that reveals that internally you yourself might be a lazy lawyer. And I will just want that to sink in, because the main differentiating factor for you as a lawyer in the age of AI is really your ability to think, your ability to imagine, your ability to visualize. That is what will matter here, because what you have in front of you is a portal that will give you an output of the type of input that you give it. We say garbage in, garbage out. Do you see that? The other type of thinking is a creative innovation thinking that will come from lawyers, where we combine, where we break through solutions that create new value, where you are able to not become a lazy thinker, but you give very, very good descriptions. Give very nice descriptions for what you want to see. Personally, I was generating a courtroom. If I was a lazy lawyer, I would say, just give me an image of a courtroom. The AI will fill the spaces for me. If I am a creative lawyer, I will have to be very descriptive about everything that I want to see. I want to see the judge holding his silver shimmer on the eye. I want to see him holding the gavel. I want to imagine him with the colonial wig that has become very popular and unfortunate. I want to see it, right? I want to know what's happening in the courtroom. I want to describe the warmth. I want to know the freckles on the faces of the people. The better you become at being able to give vivid description, the better that you're able to develop this skill. That is how you'll become a better lawyer, right? Let's go to the next slide. And I am presenting with you now a thinking strategy, a thinking methodology that you should adopt whenever you're using LAWRIS, whenever you're interacting with some of these tools. This thinking method, you can summarize it in 5 letters. We call it CRAFT, in the sense that you have to give the model context. When you talk about context, you have to identify as a lawyer, because at the end of the day, your work as a lawyer, it will not disappear. It is your work to understand the unique circumstances that are presented by your case. What is so unique about your case? And this requires you to be very creative in your thinking. You see, you have to understand the nuances of your case so that you can discuss with artificial intelligence and get the best output. The problem is that we leave artificial intelligence to decide when it should be, in real sense, simply just helping you craft an argument. That is where the work of a lawyer lies. You have to learn how to craft an argument. You have to learn how to think. That is the biggest thing that is going to be revealed, at least for the next few years. The next letter is reframe. Try to look at the problem differently, different perspectives of the problem. Try to look at assumptions. What assumptions are you giving? The future. What does it look for all stakeholders in the parties? Think about the respondent. Think about the applicant. Think about the plaintiff. Think about the defendant and tools. How can you amplify this by just doing a short demonstration? Modesta, we can move on to the next slide. Let me just present. I see that I have 4 minutes left. I am certain that I will be able to cover this in 4 minutes. So what I'm going to be presenting to you is to you just a practical way of how to interact with LAWRIS AI. LAWRIS in itself, we define as a legal intelligence platform where we offer, of course, we offer quite a variety of tools. We have document management, practice management, ethics, accounting, powered research,